God Eater 3. Hunting massive monsters at breakneck speed usually requires a full-price commitment, but seeing this drop to just under $6 feels completely wrong. The combat here is incredibly fast, focusing on transforming weapons that devour enemies mid-fight to absorb their powers. The mission structures can definitely feel a bit repetitive if you play it endlessly, but the sheer amount of customization in your weapon loadouts and bullet crafting is absurd. You can engineer ammunition that circles an enemy 3 times before exploding. Grabbing a robust 50-hour monster hunting experience for the price of a cheap cup of coffee is a ridiculously smart way to spend your budget. Dragon Ball XENOVERSE 2. Making your own custom fighter and inserting them directly into the biggest anime battles of all time is a power fantasy that rarely gets old. You are basically messing with the timeline, fixing historical anomalies alongside iconic characters. The learning curve for the combat can be slightly clunky at first, but once the combo system clicks, the sheer verticality of the fights is massive. Given that this has received years of ongoing support and updates, snagging the base game for $5 gives you access to a sprawling hub world and an ocean of quests. It is a terrifyingly good hours-to-dollar ratio. Monster Hunter Stories 2: Wings of Ruin. Taking the punishing ecosystem of Monster Hunter and turning it into a genetic splicing monster taming game is brilliant. Instead of carving monsters for hats, you're raiding dens, stealing eggs, and selectively breeding them to inherit wildly specific traits. The rock-paper-scissors combat system sounds overly simple on paper, but hitting a later game requires some intense party synergy and foresight. The frame rate can occasionally hiccup in busier areas, but at under $15, the staggering depth of the gene channeling board will easily consume your entire weekend. This is the kind of massive RPG people happily spent $40 on. Digimon World Next Order. Raising 2 digital monsters simultaneously is a bizarre, stressful, and highly rewarding loop. They have biological needs, they get hungry, they get tired, and if you forget to take them to the bathroom, they will literally poop on the ground and permanently evolve into a giant slug made of garbage. It's an incredibly weird mechanic that forces you to actually care for your party. The training grind is undeniably harsh, and your companions will eventually die of old age, forcing you to start over with better base stats. Dropping below $10 makes this punishing, deeply nostalgic life simulation entirely worth the frustration. Digimon Survive. Blending a grim, horror-tinged visual novel with tactical grid-based combat completely flips the usual childhood nostalgia on its head. Choices matter here in ways that actually hurt. Saying the wrong thing to a stressed-out teenager in your group might push them over the edge, resulting in their permanent death and locking you out of their monster's evolutions forever. The tactical battles are definitely on the slower, simpler side, acting more as pacing breaks than deep strategy. But if you want a dark, branching narrative that heavily punishes blind optimism, grabbing this for $9 is an absolute steal. Darkest Dungeon 2. Taking a miserable road trip through an apocalypse where your party members slowly learn to hate each other creates some phenomenal stories. The stress mechanics are brutal. If your healer gets too anxious, they might develop a complex and flat out refuse to heal your tank out of sheer spite. The roguelike run structure means you'll fail repeatedly, and the progression curve can feel incredibly hostile to newcomers. Yet, successfully managing your team's deteriorating mental health to barely scrape through a boss fight is a high most games never achieve. Seeing this drop near $12 makes the misery highly recommended. Valkyria Chronicles 4 Complete Edition. Mixing third-person shooting with slow, methodical turn-based strategy creates a weirdly perfect military simulation. You manually aim every shot, meaning terrain and line of sight actually dictate your survival. The game's ranking system heavily favors rushing the objective, which can sometimes punish defensive playstyles and feel slightly counterintuitive. However, the sheer volume of content in the Complete Edition is staggering. You manage an entire squad of soldiers, all with their own distinct personalities and annoying quirks that trigger mid-battle. Getting all the DLC and a massive campaign for $10 offers an absurd amount of tactical freedom. Gundam Breaker 4. ripping the arms off an enemy mech and immediately attaching them to your own robot is a ridiculously satisfying gameplay loop. The entire focus here is on plastic model kit bashing. The story is entirely forgettable, acting as just a thin excuse to get you back into the garage, but the customization is where this completely justifies its existence. You can tweak the weathering, the paint finish, and scale of hundreds of individual parts. While it is the most expensive game on our list right now at $36, the massive discount turns an overpriced niche title into a heavily justifiable obsession for builders. SCARLET NEXUS. Brain punk action where you're constantly throwing heavy machinery at horrifying mutants makes for some incredibly fluid combat. You borrow psychic powers from your squad mates, combining pyrokinesis with teleportation to keep combos going indefinitely. The pacing of the story gets aggressively strange, and you'll spend a lot of time watching static dialogue boxes in between the action. But when you're in a boss fight, dodging attacks while simultaneously ripping a concrete pillar out of the ground with your mind, it feels incredibly next-gen. For under $15, the combat mechanics alone carry this entire experience. Eldest Souls. Fighting nothing but brutal, multi-phase bosses requires a serious amount of patience. There's no filler here, no regular enemies to farm, just a gauntlet of incredibly difficult fights that demand perfect dodge timing and aggressive resource management. Healing is tied directly to dealing damage, forcing you to stay uncomfortably close to things that can kill you in 2 hits. The difficulty spikes are definitely jagged, and your fingers will cramp. But paying $2 for this level of white-knuckle, adrenaline-pumping boss design is essentially robbery. You'll definitely get $2 worth of pure rage and triumph. Frontier Hunter Erza's Wheel of Fortune. Exploring a massive interconnected castle with an over-the-top anime aesthetic provides a surprisingly solid Metroidvania experience. The weapon swapping lets you pull off fighting game-style juggles, making exploration feel highly kinetic. It definitely has a layer of indie jank, particularly in some of the platforming hitboxes and the slightly overwhelming interface. There's also a bizarrely detailed outfit system that provides weird stat buffs depending on what you wear. Considering the map size and the sheer density of hidden rooms, snagging this for under $10 easily satisfies that specific craving for map completion. Dead Island 2. Smashing your way through a wealthy Los Angeles neighborhood with electrified golf clubs showcases some of the most impressive gore technology ever coded. The flesh system realistically models skin, muscle, and bone breaking apart based entirely on where and how you swing your weapon. The overarching narrative is heavily disjointed and completely ridiculous, playing out more like a B-movie comedy than a horror game. But a price glitch or heavy discount bringing this down to $2 is a complete no-brainer. Paying $2 to experience this specific level of chaotic physics is the easiest decision of the sale. Coromon. Taking the classic monster catching formula and stripping out all the frustrating retro mechanics makes this a wildly comfortable playthrough. Instead of relying on limited move uses, you manage a stamina bar, making longer dungeon crawls feel strategic rather than annoying. The inclusion of a randomizer and highly customizable difficulty settings completely changes the replay value. While the creature designs might not hit the iconic heights of its inspirations, the underlying math and team building are incredibly sound. For $5, this completely respects your time and scratches that specific team-building itch beautifully. Deity Dark Deity. Modernizing the classic Game Boy Advance tactical era brings back highly specific strategic decision-making. Instead of losing characters forever when they drop to 0 health, they suffer grave wounds that permanently reduce their stats, which is honestly a much crueler punishment that forces you to adapt your playstyle. The interface can feel a bit cluttered, and visually it won't blow your mind, but managing bonds between your units and promoting them through complex class trees provides endless experimentation. Grabbing a 30-hour tactical campaign for under $4 is an aggressively smart budget move. Star Renegades. Interrupting an enemy's attack before it happens by aggressively manipulating the timeline creates a deeply satisfying puzzle out of every turn-based fight. You're constantly trying to break their stance, pushing their actions further down the queue until they lose their turn completely. If your squad wipes, the game remembers, and enemy commanders actually rank up and taunt you in the next run. The roguelike structure can make the early hours feel heavily repetitive, but the combat engine is a masterpiece. Dropping just over $4 on this kind of mechanical depth is an absolute steal.